Welcome back to the Anything Goes with Jackson Neill podcast. Today, have a really, really special guest, Kat Saul, come on to talk about her debut EP and what it was like recording that. Remember, you can listen to this on SoundCloud, Stitcher, iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, and also on JacksonNeillPodcasts.com, the official home for all the podcasts that I make. And a quick note, today isn't a video interview. I did this one over Skype with Kat, so if you want to get the video portion, either head over to JacksonNeillPodcast.com. Right down in the description is the link, the first one you see on whatever platform you're on. You can go click that to check out the video portion of this interview. So, as I mentioned earlier, Kat Saul just released her debut EP. It's called From Unit 408. She touches on that name in the interview, as well as the process behind it, what's it been like to get started making music herself. She'd been a writer prior, but now she's coming out, as her own artist and releasing under her own name. What that's been like, the Nashville music scene. She grew up around the city, so just all of that great stuff. It was a really, really fun time talking with her. And with that, let's jump right into the conversation. So I just want to start by asking, why the name From Unit 408 for your latest project?
Yes, so the project is called From Unit 408. I'm actually here right now. Unit 408 is where I live. And all of the songs were about situations that either kept me up late at night walking around, or literally this song, I started writing it here. So it's just the genesis for every song in the project, and I want people similarly to feel as at home with the content as I do literally in my house, like those ideas and thoughts that you have when it's just you, at night in your bed.
Mm-hmm. It kind of gives it that sense of almost intimacy that this is I'm in her house basically.
Yeah, exactly.
So what was the process behind making this EP?
Yes, so it was a little bit scattered in the sense that I'm in the studio all the time. So my background comes from just session writing. So typically I write whatever's on my heart that day, or an idea that's been on my mind for a while. So honestly, From Unit 408 is kind of the journal / narrative of the past year and a half for me. So it wasn't we went in the studio and did 1 week of writing the project. It was just songs that were really special to me at different times of my journey throughout the past year and a half. And so typically we made the demo in the studio. I write with most of my producers. So bringing it to final for release was super easy. Just a matter of, hey guys, let's get together and sit in a room and tinker with the mix. So it was super easy and kind of cooler in that way.
Okay, and you mentioned right there the past year and a half or so for you, and I was looking, and it's kind of been a big year for you. You're getting a lot of recognition with this EP, your latest singles. So just tell me about this past year and a half.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been really cool. Like I said earlier, I come from a background as just a songwriter, and always had the intention of pursuing an artist project. But I think there was just something in the back of my head that I was waiting for permission from somebody. And I realized maybe last January, that with anything in life, we're the only ones who give ourselves that permission. And so for me, that was okay, I'm not going to wait for some publisher to tell me the song is good enough to release, or wait for somebody to book me on a show. I'm going to book my own show and start putting out music. So decided that following summer that was what I was going to do, and started releasing things. And it really was amazing to me how quickly things evolved from that. And I think maybe that's just how long I'd been working on the music beforehand. But I just feel really blessed that people saw what I was doing and reacted to it positively and wanted to jump in and help and be a part of it, and not no, what are you doing?
Yeah, certainly. And I mean, you're so right about that with in terms of giving yourself permission, that a lot of times it just comes down to, okay, I want to do this. Will I do it or will I not?
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm kind of more interested in that process. Was it a specific moment that you were you know what, I got to do this? Or was it just kind of this drawn out process?
Yeah, it was, I was actually at a New Year's Eve party with a bunch of other writers and artists in Nashville. And I remember specifically someone being oh yeah, I've seen you at writers rounds. when is your music coming out? Like, when is the show? And people had asked me that before, but it was just something about like the specific mood of the evening and like talking to this girl that I was like, you know what? Like, I'm just going to do it. And I literally like went home to my parents the next day and I was like, guys, like I'm putting out a pop project this year. It's happening. And like within the month, set up my first show, which was at this venue called the High Watt in Nashville, and which is somewhere I like love playing now, and it led to a lot of cool things. So yeah, I don't know what it was about that one night, but I just woke up like, okay, like now is the time.
Now's the day. Perfect.
Yeah.
So you mentioned there you previously you've mostly been a songwriter and then you transitioned to performing yourself. What's the difference, I guess, for you between writing a song that maybe someone else would perform to writing one for yourself?
Totally. Well, I mean, in terms of like the process, it's super similar of just like having an idea and writing the song. And maybe someone else in the room is like the artist. So trying to tell their story. But if they don't have that on the heart, being able to bring in something for them to kind of pretend is their story or just a cool idea that you can write well. I would say that what I love the most about writing for my artist project now is that I can write a song like Unit 408 and it be complete. No one else is going to cut that song because most people don't live in an apartment called Unit 408. Like they can't relate to that. So it's cool because I can be super specific and like tell my story, and even middle name, like that's like a specific excerpt from a conversation that I had with someone. And so it's cool to be able to tell like my exact story and not feel, I guess, shame about it. Not shame, but I don't know. It's kind of one of those things that's like you put it out in the world, and if someone doesn't like that, like that's okay because it's for you. Like that's your story, and some people will get it and some people won't. So it's just really freeing and almost like having a public diary, which is kind of weird, but
yeah, I mean, I could imagine how it's like a freeing process to finally be able to sing those own words that you've been writing, I guess, for years now.
Totally.
And you mentioned the song right there, Middle Name. That's one that really jumped out at me. Can you tell me a little bit more about that track? I love that premise that, you get to want to be known on the middle name basis.
Oh, thanks, dude. Well, it's actually an excerpt from, I guess it was my second or third date with my now ex-boyfriend. So RIP to that. But I thought it was going really well. And I was just loving like getting to know each other better. And I do think that there's something really magical about like when you're first getting to know somebody. And I don't know. I just think chemistry can be fun, and it's not even a matter of like, ooh, like, are you into me? I'm into you. It's like, let's just like talk, and like that's special and fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, certainly. I mean, I think that really comes across in that song. It's just a really like free flowing kind of track that I love that premise. Get to know someone on the middle name basis because it's so true.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So, just touching on this EP on a whole, it's your debut project. And I guess with it being your debut project, what kind of story, what kind of things did you want the listeners to get out of this?
Yeah, like I said earlier, like I really just wanted people to be able to relate in the sense that maybe they've had similar experiences, like with a person that they were into or an ex, and or looking for somebody, and just being able to like internalize that, and hopefully like when they're at home at night, like having those same thoughts, like they feel a little bit less alone because like they know that like someone else in the world like has those same late night thoughts. So yeah, just making sure that like people feel at home with it was my goal.
And exactly goes right back to the whole 408 being at home with this project.
Exactly.
So you mentioned you grew up in Nashville, that's what I understood. How does that, being from that city, I've actually interviewed a couple artists from Nashville recently, and they all kind of have a cool perspective of it. How has being from that city, I guess, influenced you musically?
Okay, totally. Well, obviously Nashville is like the songwriting city. And actually the way that I got into music was like kind of roundabout interesting. So like grew up playing piano and guitar. Like my parents are just fans of music, and they were like, she seems like an artsy kid, like she'll do that. Mm-hmm. And started carpooling to school with a girl whose dad was an A&R when I was 13. And I specifically remember people would send him like CDs of pitch songs for his artist, and he'd pop it in, and if he liked it, he'd put it in the passenger seat, and if he didn't, he'd throw it in the back seat. And he would always ask like my opinion, like, hey, like, what do you think about this song versus this song? And it's like, obviously he didn't like really take into consideration probably like a 13-year-old's like thoughts of these songs, but it was cool because I was so interested in like what made some of the songs better or worse, and like was kind of like learning the craft through that, and just got obsessed with songwriting. Like would go home after school and like write my own songs. And so I honestly think like just being around people like that, like obviously my friend's dad was like a huge inspiration and encourager for me to be able to continue writing music. But I would definitely just say like even going to songwriters rounds, like I remember when I got a car and like going to see like a Lori McKenna around and just being so inspired by the words she was singing. Like obviously I don't write songs like with maybe the same stories that she did, but like seeing how writers tell stories and like do these beautiful lyrical twists is something that I've really tried to latch on to and ingrain in my own head and bring into my writing style, even though I am more influenced by like pop and hip hop beats.
Mm-hmm. Certainly, and I think it also has to help to be experiencing that live, not just over a track that you hear on the internet or something, but you can go see them, go with your car, go see them live and in person.
Totally, exactly, and that was too a big reason that on the EP we did Bite Stripped Down, or I guess it's not stripped down, it's not like a guitar vocal, but it's definitely less produced than the other songs. Was we wanted to put the focus on the lyric and the storytelling, and sort of allude to my Nashville roots in that way.
Oh, sweet! I didn't. That's a cool little tidbit. So now I just want to ask, going forward, what are your plans for the rest of 2019 now that this project's out?
Yes, so there's a lot more music that's coming out, and maybe some other things that like involve cameras. I don't know. We're working on it. But yeah, it's been super cool. I'm actually still in college. I go to Belmont University, so just trying to release as much music this year as I can, and maybe tour for it next year. And so just making sure that I still keep that presence and bring people along with my story, even though I'm in my little Nashville bubble for a little while longer.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is so cool.
Again, a big thank you to Kat for coming on to the podcast. Had a great time talking with her. Remember, go down in the description on any podcast platform you are on right now. You can find links to her social media, to her music, and much more. Go check out all that stuff. Stream from Unit 408 on your favorite platform. It's a really, really fun EP to listen to. I really enjoy it. I think you guys will definitely enjoy it, especially if you like this interview. It was really, really fun having Kat on the podcast. And that will do it for another episode of the Anything Goes with Jackson Neill podcast. Remember to check out jacksonneillpodcast.com. That's where you can find all the episodes of Anything Goes, as well as my sports and music podcasts. So make sure to head over there to stay up to date on all my latest episodes. Also, if you enjoyed this interview and you want a little bit more of it, a little bonus content, you can head over to Patreon, link down in the description, and you can become a subscriber of my podcast. And when you do that, you not only are you supporting the podcast, but you're also getting access to bonus content. From this interview, I talked to Kat about her favorite TV shows, favorite movies, things like that. So those come out the first of every single month. If you want to head over to Patreon right now, you can check out a little bit of a sample bonus content for some interviews I did last month. But for April, coming out May 1st, will be all the bonus content from every single interview that I publish on Anything Goes here in April. So you definitely want to head over there and sign up on Patreon if you can. Then, last links down there in the description, I promise, are links to my social media accounts at JacksonNeill20 on Instagram and Twitter. If you like me, I guess give me a follow on there. I definitely like to try to post some cool content that you guys would enjoy. Well, that's all for today. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you all next time.